Well, welcome everyone who's joining. It's so good to have you guys in the space. And one of the things that's really important to me, I know it's important to Elle, is just community building and supporting one another in the space. So while you're here, if you guys want to share and pop in the chat, like a post that you wrote that you're really happy about, or something that you created, I would love for us to be able to support one another in each other's work while you're here. And I don't know if I can see the chat. Um, I am learning my way, I would say, through Substack Live. So yeah, everybody like bear with it, but I definitely want you guys to be able to say hi to one another and to support what's going on. I'm so excited about this conversation. And before we get to it, I want to just thank you, Elle, for saying yes. I reached out to Elle, hey Lauren, and I asked if she wanted to read a book with me and join me on Books with Friends, and she said yes. And not only did she say yes, she actually suggested the book and gave me a choice to choose. And so, like, that was really exciting. That was fun. I always read outside of like what I normally read when people offer like book suggestions. So can't wait to get into it. But Books with Friends, I just wanted to set the table of what this is about. So I am a firm believer, and I think you are too, Elle, from just the stuff that I've been able to read and get to know you, that books are best explored when they're in conversation, when you can dialogue about them too. So not just, it's a private act, but I think it's like a public service is how I see it. And it helps us to live more examined and expanded lives when we're able to like discuss it. And whenever I read a book, I'm always like, oh my gosh, who read this book? I need to talk about this book, you know?
Yes.
And I always feel like I leave conversations walking away with something I didn't think before, questions that I didn't even think to ask. And like, I think along with what I read in the book, the conversations really last with me and do shape and have an influence on my life. So that's what Books with Friends is about. Because this book is so new, I didn't realize how new it was. Like, yes. It was published in June 2nd here at Drops. Yes. So it is like hot off the press. We are really going to try our best to have it be a spoiler-free conversation. Yes. So you guys can enjoy it. But I want to like set up this book. Do you want to set up the book, Elle? Do you want me to set up the book? Where do we?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to, and then compliment whatever I miss.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was lucky enough to get this book on as an ARC. It was one of the first ones that I requested, and they gave it to me, which was great. So it's about, I don't know if you guys have watched Severance. Have you watched Severance, Chantel?
I have not watched Severance.
Oh, it's one of those things, either you love it or you hate it. My husband watched like 2 episodes and he was like, not for me. I spent 3 days like, don't talk to me. I'm in the Severance bubble. I think it's so good. It's the kind of this concept of Severance where when you go to work, you have this separate version of yourself and you can't remember who you are at work, and the version of you at work can't remember who you are outside. So you live these 2 separate lives. So for everyone who's watched Severance, I would say Sublimation is kind of like Severance, but when you cross a border, you become a new version of yourself. So there's this main character, and she's Korean, and when she's a child, her and her mother immigrate to the United States. And so she leaves a version of herself behind in Korea. And then there's this new instance of her in the United States. So they become 2 separate people, and their lives take completely different paths. You're no longer the same person. You have the same memories up to that point, but you're no longer the same person. And her grandfather dies, and she ends up coming back to Korea for the funeral. And I'm not sure how much more we can say.
No, like, you've done an amazing job. Like, yes, I think that sets up the story well. She comes back, and there our journey with our characters begin. And so they're so young in Rose, right?
Yes.
And along with them, when they instanced, their mothers, like it happened to their
Yes.
mothers as well. So there was an instant version of the mother in America, and then the mother that was in Korea. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah. So there's a. I was trying to like figure out like where to begin with this story. I think also to help set the stage, there's what I experienced as foil characters. So another instance pair of their best friend, Yujin and YJ. I think Yujin is the one that was in Korea or is in Korea.
Yeah.
And YJ is also in America in New York. And their instant relationship is very different from So Young and Rose. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that like one of the other things to say, just as we are, kind of, understanding this world is that I think it's typical that instances do have some kind of connection. They sync, they communicate, even over the distance. But our main characters here didn't choose to do that. So prior to the start of this book, they did not spend a lot of time at all really talking with one another. And so they're identical, they're duplicates in a way, but they're also like strangers when they're coming together. So it sets up a pretty interesting dynamic at the start of the book, like as far as like what's going on. So I have a question. The question I'm most interested to ask, so this is probably an out of order question, but it's the one that I'm so interested in, is how the structure of this novel, like how did it impact you? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? And so it is the structure, it's written in second person narrative. So it's written in the you. And it also is, I would say, fragmented. So even within chapters, it's broken up, and so it switches. And along with that, we have these. What would you describe them, Elle? Like the ancient stories, like what would you
I was
describe
just
those?
thinking about that. So I actually listened to this book, so I think it'll be interesting to compare our experiences because I was not approved for the book, but I was approved for the audiobook. So there's like these little, I don't know if it's like interstitial is the right word, maybe, but there's these little inserts where they talk about like the Odyssey, primarily the Odyssey, which I thought was really interesting with the film coming out, I think next week. And these kind of ancient characters and I think this is spoiler free to mention, but for example, they talk about Odysseus and that when he, in their world, instancing is just kind of a fact of life. It's not this new thing. It's always been how the world works. So Odysseus, when he leaves, there becomes two instances of him, the one that goes on this adventure and the one that stays home. So it's always been this kind of interesting cultural exploration that they have with what it means to be an instance and what it means to because some people split and some people don't as well, which was also an interesting thing that they brought up through these little chapters. I also loved how they brought in K-dramas and that this became kind of a trope with K-drama.
Yes.
Which I thought
I love that. I love that.
Please, somebody make that K-drama. I would totally watch it. I love K-dramas.
I'm happy to know that. I love K-dramas too. My girls turned me on to my first one, and this is like a little sidebar, was King the Land.
I haven't watched that one.
Oh, that was so good. And Business Proposal too. I don't know if there are other K-drama people out there. But yeah. So yes, this will be great for a K-drama. It's all in the making.
But I thought it was interesting. I think there was parts of it that were written definitely in second person, especially Eugen's character, which was, I didn't love that, to be honest. It kind of pulled me out of this. Yeah, it kind of pulled me out of the story. And then I think parts of when they were talking about like Rose, I think parts of those were in third person as well. So I appreciated that the whole novel wasn't in second person. I think I probably would have stopped reading it, to be honest.
Interesting. So that is so interesting because, Okay, so I don't know, like the written version of this, the majority is second person. I
Mm,
wonder if that was a change. Like, so it's this mix, yeah, second person, third person. Um, I so the concept, I liked the concept. Um,
yes.
and the conflict within the concept. And I like the fact that it wasn't just like a domestic concept between, these characters and how they were working out, but then on the other layer of that, you have a societal conflict, like an ethical conflict in
Yeah.
terms of technology
Yeah.
that is introduced, I think, like in the second part of the novel. I think it,
Mhm.
it kind of gets into that. And so there's this other, kind of layer to it. And so I liked that the conflict was layered. And it really did bring up a lot of questions around like ethics and like what's right, what's wrong, who should choose,
Yeah.
like to instance, I guess, who should choose to come back together or reintegrate, as they call it. Um, but I struggled with the narrative choice. Like I, and it's so interesting because when I started reading it, I was like, oh, this is written in second person. I don't read a lot of books that are in second person.
No.
Um, and so I was like telling everyone, including my husband, who was like, "Great, I'm so happy for you." But I was like, honey, this book is written in second person, right? And I was really excited about that, like in ways that are strange. But I think I think that there was a lot of that, or it then became something that was more distracting
Yeah.
than than like helpful. And I also I found that it I mean, so then I have to pull back and say, okay, but is that the point, right? Because this is a book about very fractured, like split lives. That's they're not in sync. It's not, like that. So is the author with this jagged structure and in all the ways, both in the choice of narration, but also the layout. So like in the book form, how it is, it's actually like broken up. Like
Oh,
it's
interesting.
physically it's physically broken up. So even like your eyes as they scan a page, it's not all together. So it's all of
Oh,
these,
that's
yeah.
challenging. Yeah.
It's it's challenging. So you can't find like like a rest. You know what I'm saying?
You can't
And
just disappear into the book.
you can't just disappear into this book. And so on the one hand, I can appreciate the commitment to it's almost like the author Isabel J. Kim is like I want the reader to try to experience what some of the things that the characters experience by way of reading this book.
Right.
And I can see that. And in the same time, I think it was difficult for me to emotionally connect with the character, like in a strong way. Like, did you connect emotionally with?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think it was I connected more with the concept, I think, than
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
And kind of bringing it back a little bit. And I think this is in the description that the second part has to do with kind of the tech company that
Hmm.
manages a certain part of this process, because they talk about in the first couple pages that there's this bracelet
Yeah.
that helps you not reintegrate with your instance, right? So if you kind of how it works, which I think it's in the first couple pages, so I think it's okay to say,
Yeah. Absolutely.
if you touch each other, then you merge, like you become one person again. So there's these bracelets that you can wear that keep you, in theory, from being able to, it's not perfect like any technology, but being able to merge. And so there's this underlying theme as well, like you mentioned, with technology. And I think it was that intellectual connection that I had with the book,
Yeah.
not with the characters. I wanted to see where are they taking this? How do people navigate this situation? But I wasn't necessarily rooting for anyone in the
It's,
book.
I think that you have described beautifully what I was feeling. I wasn't able to root for anyone in the book. I was definitely an observer.
Yeah.
And I was an interested observer around like the concepts, like you said, of what was being presented. But I wasn't, I thought that I would for Eugene, but then no. Like these places, I think I tried and I couldn't. Like there was like a barrier
Yeah.
almost to like my ability.
I
And I'm just
wonder if like writing it in second person is part of that, because when they say you do this, you feel that, you go this way,
yeah.
it maybe you're speaking to me and not necessarily, I'm not seeing the character go through this, I'm inserting myself into the story.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. I think it's so challenging, both probably as the writer and the reader of that, of the second person, because we weren't able to feel like what they were feeling.
No.
It was like it was a telling, kind of it.
Yes.
And yet the topic is so emotional. The topic of diaspora, of moving locations, immigrating, crossing borders. And I think that there were several different borders that I was interested in. I think that there's the physical border, the borderlands that we think about, where like you said earlier, in this world, instancing is normal, and governments have different ways in which they deal with it. America in this book seemed, gracious. I think they got a passport and there was no problem, it seemed. But also, I think that there were other borders, like those emotional borders, or the borders between like what gets spoken and what doesn't. So like between the characters of the grandfather,
Yes.
I was really interested in that part of the story, the grandfather and the mothers, basically his daughters, and the fact that the mother in America hadn't talked to her father or sister in years, right? There's this border of silence. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about like, the different borders that like there are the ones that are physical, that are made, and then there are the ones that we create. And even with the ones that we create, there's still this what's left behind and what's moving forward in a way. I
Yes.
wondered like about that.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting, that character of the mother, that there was a huge part of her that just wanted to completely cut contact. She left,
Yeah.
she never really engaged again. But then there's this whole other version of her that has this really active family life. So at some point, both of those versions are living inside of her, probably. So it was so interesting to see that it's not like the version that she left also cut contact. That was something that was really interesting to me, that she was so different.
Yes. Yeah. I also was trying to think, again, as just an observer, do you think like, so both of these women, So Young and Rose, they had very different lives.
Yeah.
And do you think that like one life was better than the other?
Oh, I know you've moved around a lot too, right?
I did. Yes. 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 And I want to talk about that.
As somebody who's lived in a couple different countries as well, I think that there's the good and the bad in every place and in every
Yeah.
version. And I can't say that, fortunately, from where I've lived, I can't say that there's one that's necessarily better than the other. There's parts that I miss from all of them. And there's some versions of like certain countries that I've lived in that I said, wow, these 3 things are great here and these 3 things I don't like. And then where I live here, these 3 things are great and these 3 things I don't like. And I always describe to people kind of when they say, well, how did you decide where to live? I say, well, one of the things I thought about was picking the things I don't like the least, like the least bad parts, because every place has those bad parts. And so I don't know if there was necessarily, because I think in the States, she had all of these opportunities, she had a lot of advancement in her career, but she seemed really lonely.
Yeah.
And in Korea, she didn't seem lonely at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I that was one of the things that I stuck out. One, I agree. I'm an Army brat. And so rotating is just part of what you do. And there was both an excitement when we were, headed to a new place, but also a sadness at the same time. And I think that the self holds both of those things in concert with one another simultaneously when you're having to, when you're moving, or especially if it's like habitual, something that you do often. And I was thinking back, the place that I enjoyed the most, I think, was Korea, actually. So it was so fun.
That's so
cool. To read a book that was half set in Seoul, Korea, and it was a lot of fun. And I was thinking back about like how, I was a young girl when I lived there. And there are definite parts of myself when I look back on that Chantel was a little different. Like my tone, I was very tonal in my speaking.
Oh, interesting.
In that way, like, I was very tonal. Even like the habit of that Chantel never entered into a house with shoes, like anyone's house. That Chantel did certain things. There were certain things that Chantel did. And part of it was just, a lot of it was just like cultural, like the culture container that I was in. But I also had like really different types of relationships, and friendships were very different than what I was able to have when I was back in the States, and and depending on where I was, and in some ways I was spectacle, in other ways I was other. Like it was, and not in like in a mean way, but just in like a different. You know what I'm saying? Like and the adjustment, and so it's also interesting as an adult because it's so part of my formative. It marked me. That specific tour marked me in so many ways. And I have kids, and I think that's the place that they know the most about. And I'm always like, some of the things that I do now, or the expectations that I have, stems from that period of my life that they don't have a connection to, like their own reference point. So it is kind of these, I think, these compartmentalization sometimes that happens. When you're switching around, and it's hard to make sense of it. Sometimes I think that it got that.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always part of you that even as much as you want to bring it with you, you can't. There's just. There's no way. Like that version of you, that part of you belongs in that place, belongs in that culture. And it doesn't translate for whatever reason. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe you like to go running at night by yourself, and you don't live in a place that's safe enough to do that anymore. And so you're no longer, a solo
able
runner.
To do that. Right. Or, absolutely.
Taking your shoes off. There's, there's houses where people be like, what are you doing? Why are you taking your shoes off in my house?
Exactly.
Okay, make yourself at home.
Right. Right. Why are you eating favorite? Kimchi was the biggest thing. Like I love kimchi. It was just such a part of the daily.
Yeah.
And I remember being in college, and I was so embarrassed to eat it, around, because the smell is very strong. And sometimes you just don't want to have to explain.
Yeah.
You just don't feel like I don't want to have to explain. I don't want to have to bend. I just want to like enjoy this thing. I don't even want to introduce. I don't want to be like, sometimes you just don't want to do those things.
Right.
And yeah, and you have to do those things. I wanted to talk about the role of desire.
Mm. Yeah.
Because one of the things, especially with the tech part conflict, is desire versus choice. Like the instances seem to have been able to have some choice and agency as to what they wanted to do. So the mother made the choice that she wanted to um, go to America, an instance, and then her choice had a ripple effect with her child.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't something that they chose, but it was something that was chosen for them, that they had to live that choice out. And the desire for, I think I just was kind of grappling with the reality of guilt attached to desire. So if the desire is, I want to have a better life, I want to have different opportunities that I feel like I can't have here in ways that I'm limited, how that desire is also coupled with the guilt of having to leave behind, or even the guilt of saying in some way that this here isn't enough for me,
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was really interesting to see her not having that choice at all, and also really not having the opportunity to connect with her other version, her other
right,
instance, and the other character, YJ or Eugene, having that choice because he decided when he was an adult, he was already in college, and just seeing how different their relationships were and how different they thought about the idea of maybe sometime reintegrating.
right,
Um, One thing I thought was really interesting was that some people had thought about this as kind of a way to optimize themselves, which is immediately what I thought about. I immediately went to
yes,
like the Hermione Granger idea
yes,
of it all, where, she had that little necklace where she could read
yes,
at night and get ahead in school while everyone else
yes,
was sleeping. And I kind of thought about that like, oh, wow, yeah, you could study engineering, you could study math, you could, do all of these things at the same time and then come back and kind of be this superhuman version of yourself.
yeah,
If you made that decision as an adult, if you made that decision as a child, or if somebody else made it for you, that would be really difficult. And I thought it was really interesting the way too that she brought up kind of towards the end the idea of who gets to make these decisions in terms of class and wealth and access, that kind of people who are very, very wealthy, it's a little easier for them because they have all this access and they can
right,
move around really easily. And how do we compare that to someone who's a refugee, who's making this decision for completely different decisions, and that whole spectrum in between? I thought that was so interesting, not just how it affected who split and who didn't split, but also really just thinking about that idea of who gets to be mobile, who gets to have access to better opportunities and decide when they want to leave and when they want to come back, and who doesn't.
yeah. That is so true, and I'm glad you brought that up with the class. I think that it was an important like piece, like especially to leave to think about, like who does get the privilege, who doesn't, and how like it's divvied out. And another thing that I thought about is, what part of you does a country want? I like in Korea, like it was so, you just felt, Korean culture, that was there. You felt like the family, the culture,
Yeah.
the heritage of it. But with Rose, it's I don't know like how much of that carried forward, like how much of her Koreanness, if we would say that culture was present. And if you have instances where countries can select, I guess I'm kind of thinking about it like the model immigrant, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, and so we want these aspects of you, you know, um, but then the immigrant in some communities feel like I have to assimilate in order to really be accepted. And
Right.
so bringing my whole self, like my whole culture, right, isn't like the messaging, at least in America, I would say, is not necessarily something that people have felt like my whole self is really valued or wanted. The way of making it, the way of being successful is assimilating. And
Right.
so I wondered if, one of the things that I thought about are like, does the invention of instances make assimilation easier? Because I haven't like totally left myself. Like there is this self that's still connected to culture and all of that.
Mm,
But this
yeah.
other self doesn't like, is there less pressure because I have this other self? Is there less pressure to like have
To
my culture,
assimilate,
to
and
assimilate? Yeah.
I can always kind of bring that back if I want to. I can always.
Yeah, I can bring that back. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, there's this idea of that other person is their own person now. So
Yes.
maybe I want to bring that back, but maybe they don't
Exactly.
anymore. Maybe they don't like me anymore and they don't want all that.
Exactly. 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 And because when they instance they're two separate entities, I think even with Wajin and YJ, you had that conflict of like
Yeah.
YJ I think wanted to um be independent, so even though I think their plan was we're going to reintegrate,
Mhm.
um that shifted, because it's like I have this life, and then it really gets complicated romantically. How are you figuring? It's like I was trying to follow that. Like if I'm dating an instance, and then at a certain point, and he's dating someone, and if there's reintegration, well, then are they choosing one of us? Like how does that work? It gets, it's a little
Yes, it's so
complicated.
complicated. The romance part is really interesting, guys. Like we can't really.
It's
It'd be a lot
yeah,
of spoilers, but it's not just
yes,
like tech and all of
yes,
these other kind of cultural and philosophical elements. There's
yeah.
also like a romance going on that's really interesting to think about,
That's
which is that
yeah.
might be such a good K drama.
It would be such a good K drama. It
So
would be
good.
such a good K drama. What is like? Where do you, as someone you're an American, right?
Yep.
And you are in Brazil, so
Mhm.
you have an experience of this. What did this book, as you were engaging it, did it bring up for you, or did you resonate with, or anything like that? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, I thought like it was interesting to kind of think about because I think as an immigrant, like you mentioned, there's always those moments where you feel like an outsider. No matter how much you try to integrate. Like the other day, I was with my friends at karaoke, and I've lived here for almost 15 years. The language is fine, all of these things, but they started singing songs from their childhood. I've
Um,
never heard these songs, right? I
yes,
don't know who these people are. I've never heard these songs. They're not on the radio. They're not popular. But if you were around, at that time period, of course, everybody knows them. So I'm at karaoke sitting there. I'm not singing along because I don't know the words. It's not fun for me.
right.
So you feel like an outsider. And so there's always this kind of, I think, feeling of being a little bit separate. But I think
Mhm,
also as somebody who leaves, you always do wonder, like, what would the other life have been like if I had stayed?
mm,
Um, and I think that it's a really interesting thought exercise to think about. Every time I go back to the US, it's more and more different. Because after 6 months, it's not that different. After a year, it's not
right,
that different. But
right.
15 years is a long time for culture to change. Like if we think, what was on
Yes,
TV and
yes,
what the culture was like, who was popular, what clothes looked like, it starts to change and you're surrounded by a different culture. So you're changing in a different direction. So it really made me think, what would me have been like who had stayed? What job would she have? What friends would she have? Who would she have married? All of those things would have been completely different.
yeah. What brought you there 15 years ago? Was it like your choice? Was it
Mhm.
desire? Was it like what pulled you?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get a Fulbright award to come to
Oh, wonderful.
Brazil. And then I met my husband,
Yeah.
and so I guess desire
Yes.
is why I
Yeah.
stayed.
Yeah. No,
And I
that
just really
is.
liked it down here. Like I'd always wanted to live abroad for a while. I studied
Mhm,
abroad in Sweden. I studied abroad in South Africa.
mhm.
I studied abroad in Brazil before I moved down here. So I always wanted to have like some international time. And this just worked. And I was like, it's working for now. I don't know how long I'm going to stay. And then, you know, the older you get, the harder it gets to move around. Like when you're 22 and everything you own can fit in a suitcase, great. But now I have 3 dogs and I have a husband and I have, you know, a mortgage and I have furniture and
Right.
all of those things. So just, you know, picking up and moving somewhere else is a lot more complicated.
It is. So my husband just got back from France, Narbonne, the south of France, and he went to visit with my sister and brother-in-law, who do about 3 months there. They've been doing like these 3 months for the past couple of years with the intent of like, is this where we want to like have a second place? Like just kind of checking it out. And he grew up opposite of me, so he didn't have international travel that I had. And so the concept of like, hey, we should go, like, you know, let's go, let's like, it was easier for me to think about moving abroad than it was for me moving state to state. Like that felt like, but if you say like, let's move overseas, it just, because of my experience, was just an easier thing to wrap my head around, because it wasn't permanent, because I was like rotation, you know, so there was always this coming home that was in the back of my head, versus I think like, oh, if we move to like North Carolina, am I going to be stuck in North Carolina? Like, you know, that was kind of, I think, what I was battling. But he went over there and, you know, because we're trying to have conversations about like future and being and living overseas and what could that look like. And, you know, he came back inspired and to like, okay, let's really think about it and how do we approach it. But it is a trickier conversation because we have 3 kids, and in 4 years, like they're like high school, college age, right? So it's like, well, I can't be away, right? So it just, I think life becomes more cumbersome than, you know, when things were in a different season. It's just easier to move around. But it is such a reward to be able to figure that out somehow. I think like the benefits are definitely there, because I also think that there's this truism where it's hard to encounter different aspects of yourself when you're in the same space.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
Like you, in a way, if we looked at these characters and we looked at them as one, they were having very different experiences of their selves, of abilities, desires, opportunities, because they were in a different location. And it forces, you know, it forces, you know, you to do that. Like you have to live a little outside of yourself, your comfort zone. I mean, he did come back saying, honey, turn the fan off, the air conditioning. You know that 90% of Americans use air conditioning, and a lot of people in like France was only 20%. And I think I got used to no air conditioning. I was like, we're going to stop right there, because
I'm not giving that up.
I'm not giving that up, and I need to keep the fan on. But good for you. Like, I don't know how you adjusted that quickly to like not having air, but okay. Like, it was just like hilarious. But I think it's really just very, you know, interesting in all the different ways that you're pulled, and some of the things that we think we have to leave behind, or that we just do get left behind. That's different. And I also loved, like, this was both one of the things I appreciated, it was both ancient and classical and very modern at the same time.
That was cool.
And so if any of you guys out there that like kind of that, you know, being centered in works that are classic or ancient, there are elements in this story that provide you that, and it's not just once, but it's a through line. It's like a current and undercurrent. And then there are also aspects that are so modern and like so right now, like the K-drama is just so relevant, like just so cultural, like trending right now. And I also was thinking about how when we were rotating a lot, like there was not the technology that happens now. So I had to get used to like leaving, like ending friendships. You know, it wasn't easy to kind of keep those friendships going. And I look at the ease now, like even, you know, I think it stood out to me more maybe in this book, like Eugene and YJ's conversations and how they were able to just be so in sync with what was happening in each other's lives because of technology. It's like it didn't miss a beat. And even I imagine for you being where you are, right, in Brazil and having family back here in the States, like the ability for you to be present still in their lives is what looks so different if we didn't have technology, like, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things that was really interesting that they mentioned kind of early on in the book, that this didn't used to be kind of a problem, because when somebody moved to the US from Japan, that was it.
That was
You're
it.
never going to talk to your instance ever again. Like, you could send them a letter or something like that, but most likely you're going to live separate lives and you're never going to see each other. So for the majority of human history in their world, right?
Yeah.
It was a complete and utter separation. And it was only a very modern thing where the instances could really have this strong connection. And exactly like you said, this Odyssey idea comes through various times. Like, they really kind of track Odysseus's story at various inserted points throughout the story, which was really interesting and I think really timely with Odyssey fever going on.
Odyssey, right. I was like, did they time this?
They must have.
I think it was like so clever. And if it was an accident, such a great coincidental accident, like spot on. Because there's so many people that are also like reading and touching, like reconnecting with it, because the movie is coming out. I can't wait to see it myself. And I love that. And I also loved that the book provided an ability to wonder not just about the present with this in this world, but also the past, like with Odysseus, like that one self staying and another self going, or like any of the heroes, like, and what that must have, like what that looked like, even in, I think it was like a Korean folk tale about the fishermen who, came back and discovered some things, and like, even kind of which you'll have to read it. Like,
it's good, it's juicy.
Like it was really interesting. And even I think Eve in the garden in the Bible and the Garden of Eden story, I liked how the author twisted each very familiar. So these are, I think, especially for obviously Odysseus and Eve, these are, part of Western canon, that even if you don't have to be religious, or you don't have to be whatever, like somewhere along your life you've heard of, probably, these stories. And the way in which she twisted it, or just, tweaked it, allowed us to think something differently about it, to wonder differently. And I liked that, this thing. And it was so confusing for me at first, Elle, because when I read when I first got to Odysseus and I read it, it became a resting place for me, because it was like, oh, okay, I'm in this world, I'm trying to figure out the rules of the world, it's disjointed, I'm trying to do all this. Oh, okay, Odysseus, I know this. But then I was like, wait a second. Like, I was like, wait a second, this isn't the same. Like, what's going on? Like,
he didn't get to do that.
He didn't get to do that. Wait, but no, seriously. I was like, but wait a minute, did he? Am I confused?
I know, me too. I did read this in high school.
I do believe. Did I get it all wrong all that time? Like, that
it took me a while to like, no, okay. Oh, she's being clever. Okay, I got it.
Okay. I just thought that was so clever.
It was.
And it was like, and yes. And so I loved like that aspect of how she weaves this in. And this is her debut novel.
Yeah. Really impressive.
So very impressive debut novel. I was listening to an interview. She's a very fun personality. She is a big sci-fi, person. But she also described, she was like, I read a lot of high sci-fi and low sci-fi. So I liked that her gamut of breadth of what she deemed valuable. and had something to offer readers, I think is also seen in her construction of this world. There's the very highbrow, like, calls of the ancient, right? But then there's also what some people might say, like mentions of like the K-pop that like are, not as highbrow, right?
Yeah.
That people but that there is value in both. And I think that one of the things when it comes to reading, that's such a contentious conversation is like, well, what books are worthy to be read, or what books are worthy to be discussed? You know what I mean? And so it was really refreshing, I think, hearing a book lover and an author be able to talk about confidently the breadth of her reading, but also the value that she was able to gain from reading a variety of different things. And one of the things that I love about you and that I resonate with you is you talk about how you read like across genres, like you're not limited, to what you read. And I think that it allows us to be able to get little nuggets from different spaces that are helpful in different ways. So I appreciated that as well. Oh my goodness. Okay, so our time is it's an hour is never enough for a
book. It goes by so fast.
One of the things I want to say to you, well, one question before I say that is I am gonna be creating I call it, where do we go from here? So like books that touch upon the themes that this book brought up. And across genres. And so I want to invite you. You can help curate. You can send me some ideas as you're, musing, and as something to kind of say a thank you to folks who showed up today and joined our conversation. So if they're interested in themes or the genre, like they have some other recommended places to go. So I don't know if you have any other books that deal kind of with this theme off the top of your head. No pressure, because I did not ask her before this. There's no pressure. And I'm a crock pot type person. In my older years, I'm getting better at saying, excuse me, I'm a processor. So if you could like, I could come back to you. So definitely do that. But we will get your thoughts to it, and I will organize it in such a way.
Yes.
And give it out to people. But one of the things I want to say is I want to say that I think you and Lauren did something, and Lauren from Book Talk with Lauren, that like I didn't even think would happen, and that is, wait for it. You're going to be so happy. I actually went into a library last week.
Yay! That's awesome. I love that.
For the first time in about 10 years.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Really? Okay, so I'm writing a post about it. I took lots of pictures. I went to MLK Library in DC, so it's downtown DC, and it is renovated. It is humongous and it's gorgeous. So I was really floored. I was not expecting what I received when I got there. It had so I have made comments like in the past as to why I don't really do libraries, and one of them has been like, I would like a cafe situation. Like, I'm a bookstore girl. You know what I mean? I never even think about going to the library. And I do support libraries though, and I think they're awesome. I just don't, I just don't do it. This library, you guys, had a cafe. And not only did they have a cafe, but I love the intentionality of like that they were committed to helping a small business woman. It's a Black small business woman who runs this cafe, and it's wonderful. They also have like a huge screen, like auditorium that's free for all. They had the World Cup, like the soccer games going when I went in there. They also have a co-working space that's beautiful co-working spaces. And in the entryway of this museum, because it's huge, there's an art gallery of like sculptures and stuff like that. And I think what was on display was like the contributions that Washington, D.C. has made on our country in honor of the 250th year celebration. And it's just like wonderful. I was like, oh my goodness, why has it taken me so long? I was like, I don't even know if I should do this post because I'm kind of embarrassed, but whatever. I was like, and I'm telling you, it's because you guys talk about the library so much. So I go to the library to the lady, and she seems calm and wonderful, like she loves her job. And I say to her, I was like, I'm a book person. I love books. But I don't know how to maneuver the library. I was like, do you all use Dewey Decimal? Because that's like what was happening.
Yeah,
I don't know how this works. And I was like, I'm so embarrassed to even say it, but it's like, I don't know. Like, how do I find a book? Like, right? Do we still do that? So how do I get a card? So I got my library card.
Yay!
And she was like, no worries, like at all. She was like, talk to me through everything and how things work. Because it is different than what I realized. I'm used to, like in a bookstore, like a lot of the books face out, you could see them. The displays are different. Yeah. And in the library, it was like shelves of like the spines.
Yeah.
You know, and you really have to. And I'm used to like, hey, I'm looking for this book and someone going to get the book for me. So I'm used to that as well. Yeah. But she showed me how it worked and how things were organized and the computer system that I can go into. So I have 2 books on hold, and today I got a notification that one of my books is available.
That's amazing. Another weekend trip to the library.
And my husband is like, oh my gosh, please tell them thank you, because the amount of money, like,
we can use it on vacation.
Like, yes. I was like, oh my gosh, because books are, it's expensive.
They've gotten it really expensive, yeah.
They have, like, honestly, this book costs $32 with tax, like included, $32.
Yeah.
It's a nice cover, you guys, too.
It is. It's really cool.
That like the cover. So I just wanted to let you know that your mission, and Lauren, your mission of celebrating libraries and encouraging, it had an impact on me because directly of you. Okay, all right. Before we go, I want us to play this game. I'm going to try and pull it up here. We're going to see if my share works. So I have a little game, and it's called One Last Author. Let's see if it shows up. Do you see it? One Final Author.
Okay, yes. Now I can see it. Oh.
Let me see if it's big. Okay, can you still see it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so how we play this is you are going to pick one of these wonderful, illustrious authors, and they are going to ask you a question. So, and you can pass the question. It's no pressure. Okay, you choose.
Let's go with Toni Morrison.
Toni Morrison. Okay. So Toni Morrison's question is, and that's just a great choice. Great choice. What have you carried from those who came before you that cannot be held in your hands? I will say it again. What?
Yeah, let me take notes.
Yeah, I was going to say it again. I'm going to say it again. Here we go. Okay. What have you carried from those who came before you that cannot be held in your hands?
Wow, that's a great question. You should have sent this to me before so I could give a good answer. Guys, don't judge me. I mean, I think like definitely a love of reading is something that has, and I'm really fortunate for that because like my parents are, hi mom, she's on the chat.
Oh, hi mom.
Let's see, is she still? But like I come from a big family of readers, and that was really important for me because I grew up in a really small town. we were very isolated. So the largest like big towns were like 4 hours away in either
Okay.
direction. And we were so isolated that we were actually like a test market for big food companies because they could get an accurate read on how people would respond because we were so kind of unencumbered by the influences of other communities. So I think my parents really encouraged me to read, and my grandparents encouraged me to read on both sides. My dad was a really big writer. My grandmother had a writing company
Oh,
my whole
wow.
life, so she was a technical writer. So they really encouraged me to read, and I think growing up in such an isolated place, that made all the difference. Because I think if I hadn't read, if I hadn't been a reader, I would probably still be there. I would probably
Yeah.
have, and not that there's anything wrong with that, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
people who are still there who are very, very happy. But I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, it really unlocked a lot of opportunities and a vision of the world that, wow, there's so much more out there that I didn't know. And that if I hadn't been able to kind of find those through books, I would never have had the life I had.
Right. Wow. You did not need preparation for that question, Elle.
Well,
Oh, that is so, that I loved that answer, and where your root and passion for reading came from. And how it always, probably every time you pick up a book or whatever, you're connected to your home and your
yeah,
family and your town. Like, I
yeah.
love that. I love that.
And my really
Oh,
great, really tiny library.
yes,
But really
yes.
lucky to have one. Even being a small town, like we were really lucky to have a library, really lucky to have great librarians. We had a little auditorium that they called the Kiva, which was really cool. And it was because, I grew up kind of near the Southwest. And so we had a lot
Hmm.
of kind of like Mesa Verde that
Yeah.
was not too far away. So they kind of built this inspired by Mesa Verde and the Kivas.
Oh, that's
And
so
it was
nice.
such a cool space. And when they did the renovations, they got rid of it. It made me
Oh,
so sad. They're like, oh, it's dated, but it had been there for a long time. And it was such a cool place. They had so many cool
mhm.
community events there. And so yeah, definitely that was such a huge advantage to have in our town, even though we were small.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Yeah, go to the library, you guys.
Yes, it's fun.
Go to the library. I see Lauren says that she's there about 3 times a week. I believe it. I believe. I believe. And
We can't stop.
yes,
We're
yes,
addicted.
yes, yes. Well, I want to share um, a post that you did that I truly, truly enjoyed. I know a lot of people saw it and commented on it, but I wanted to put it in the chat for folks. I'm going to really try. I'm getting comfortable with, manipulating the Substack. And that was the one that you did on books about American history. And so it was really good. If you guys haven't read this one, please, please, please take a moment to read it. There's so many great books. And I really love what Elle does, because you do such a great job, a visually beautiful job too, by the way, I want to say, and that matters. So we thank you for the effort that I know you put into making it pretty and attractive for us. But I love how you curate, books. One of the things I think that's true about you is, like, no matter if you are a book reader or you're not a book reader, you will go onto Elle Substack and she has something that will catch your eye. Like,
Hopefully.
I love that. And I love
Hopefully.
that about you. Oh my goodness. So I just want to thank you again for saying yes. I'm going to tell you that my next Books with Friends is from another book friend here. And we are going to be talking about, let me put it up. We're going to be talking about Yesteryear. Yay! On July 22nd. Let me stop sharing.
Right here.
But July, not 22nd, July 21st. July 21st. And so I'm really excited to talk about Yesteryear.
Yes.
And so please, if you guys have not read Yesteryear, read it, because we're going to talk about all the things. So it probably will be a spoiler.
I cannot wait.
A spoiler. Have you read that one yet?
Yes,
Okay. Oh, look at that!
It's on my bookshelf.
Look at that! Yes, I thought I recognized the spine. Yes. Yes.
It's one of the
Okay.
ones I bought because I put it on hold at the library and they're like, oh, several months. There's no way I can wait several months for this book. I have to buy it. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm so excited for that conversation. I feel like I've seen such different perspectives on Substack than I've seen on like Instagram or Threads or TikTok.
Yes.
I'm super excited to see you guys discuss that.
I'm so excited. So I am really excited to be talking about this book. There's a lot of conversation around it, and I can't wait to have it. So if you guys have read Yesteryear, we're gonna start having some like pregame conversations. I'm gonna poll. I want to see like where people are and like what do people want to talk about, that kind of thing. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. So yay! Thank you so much for the generosity of your time.
It was so much fun.
Yay! So
and I love
you
guys. If you're here from my page and you don't follow Chantel yet, please follow her. I am always telling my husband that you have the most thoughtful notes. Like you ask these questions that we always are discussing at dinner. Like you come up with these questions to think about books and reading that really kind of stop me in my tracks. So if you guys aren't following her, she has amazing content and obviously does these lives, which are great to follow. So if you came here from my page, please make sure you check out her page.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ditto, ditto, ditto as well. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks everybody.
All right. Bye guys. Thanks everyone for coming. Bye.
Bye.